Hello. Thank you. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, everybody here on this Saturday evening. It's yes, 8 p.m. Eastern. My name is Melanie and I'm an addict and an alcoholic. It's an honor to speak here tonight on Zoom. And yeah, this is what happened and what it's like now, how I got here. I I had a problem when I was born, honestly. Um, I I'm adopted. My Turns out my biological mother was an addict and an alcoholic, which I didn't know that until much later in life. But I was a very sensitive child. Anything could easily throw me off. I felt very deeply, and I didn't understand what any of that meant, and neither did my parents. They were Joyce, my parents. They are Black people. They were from Harlem. They are from Harlem, New York, and they moved to New Jersey. And they were strong people. It was during the civil rights movement when they were being raised, so they believed in creating strong Black kids, and that's what they endeavored to do with me. And they did do it, but not in the way they thought they would. um, they were not prepared for a very sensitive child. um when I would cry at perhaps something that would happen overseas, or if I felt that somebody was hurting and it hurt me, my mother would say, don't let them cry, don't let them make you cry, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And so I learned very early on that my emotions were different than others, and my responses to my emotions were different than others, and that they had a tendency to cause people uncomfortability. So, very early on in my life, I learned how to hide my feelings, to just discredit the things that I thought, and to try to tiptoe to make people around me feel better. Um, so, I I think lately I've been able to kind of see how I was a sneaky child. um, because my feelings were sometimes so overt, I often kept the motives and the reasons hidden because I didn't want to have any blowback for the reasons why I was feeling the way that I felt. So my first drug of choice was books, chocolate, and television. So whenever I had a uncomfortable feeling, whenever I felt not a part of, which was often, I have three other siblings. They're all adopted. I was the oldest, but for some reason, I did not feel a part of this family. So I spent a lot of time reading. And in that world of reading, I could share emotions, I could share adventures, I could share feelings with the people in the book, and nobody knew what I was going through. I remember being like 13 and reading the Harlequin romances and hiding the covers so no one would know that I was reading smut. I just remember just really getting caught up in the world of fantasy and often wishing that I was not a part of this world of reality. Um, I remember stealing chocolate from my brothers during Halloween, because whenever I felt uncomfortable, it was like cookies, chocolate, candy. That sugar rush always made me feel better because I was maladjusted. I could not cope with the world around me. I had a really hard time in school. I was too Black for the white kids, too white for the Black kids, and I didn't fit in amongst my peers. And so, my mother, I feel badly for her because she really could not help me, and I couldn't help myself. And so I grew up very lonely. I had a very poor regard for myself, and I wanted to grow up. I remember wanting to grow up very fast so I could get the hell out of there. And we had a nice house, we lived in a wonderful neighborhood, but I couldn't wait to grow up because somehow I believed that when I became an adult, everything was going to be different and everything was going to be better. So I endeavored to do well in school and and go away for college. So another issue that I had growing up was with rejection. I could not handle rejection to save my life. And so when I first started feeling like I was a part of something was smoking cigarettes in the bathroom stall with girls with a girlfriend. She was older than me. I was, so it was like, wow, here I am doing this illicit cool thing with a friend of mine. Worst thing I could have ever done. I'm still stuck on nicotine, but that's a story for another day. So that was my first time of really feeling a part of, just for who I was, not for what I did. I did do theater, I did do chorus and band. And even then, it was just like, it was just based off of what I was doing, not for who I was. So I really liked hanging out with that girlfriend because we would sleep over each other's houses and we'd hang out with boys. And I remember being 16, 17, riding on the backs of motorcycles with boys down Roosevelt Boulevard in Philadelphia, just just being wild but hiding it, like not letting my parents know, not letting anybody know that that's what I was doing on the weekends when I was sleeping over my friend's house. My first drink was Strawberry Boone's Farm. We had a fake ID. I had a bottle, she had a bottle, and I was just like, yes, thank you. And I loved drinking from that moment on. But I knew I couldn't do it because I was underage. I mean, I'm not a dummy. I was underage. I knew I couldn't get access to it. What we did have access to was marijuana, and so I smoked pot on the weekends sometimes and drank. And I remember that one time that I smoked and I drank and I made it home and I was laying in bed praying to God to like make the world stop spinning. And I promised that I would not drink or do drugs again until I got to college because I remember being so desperately afraid my parents were going to catch me and I was going to get in big, big trouble. And so I made that promise, finished out school, went to college, and it was free the fool. I I drank and I did drugs all throughout college. And I had no idea until I got to college that my usage was self medication. It was very evident early on that I had mental health issues. I'd been to therapists since like the age of like 12. And, when I got to college, I went to a therapist. She's like, well, you are self medicating. And I was like, well, okay, then I'll keep taking my medicine. And so that's what I did. I would go to school and I would drink and I would smoke and then I would go to bed. And then I would maybe go to school and then drink and then smoke and then go to bed and then not go to school and drink and smoke and then go to bed. And it just became this cycle where I really only chose to go to the classes I wanted to go to, the classes that I thought were important. And I drank and I smoked and I enjoyed myself to the best of my ability. I had no idea that no matter where you go, you bring you with you. So all that crap from junior high school, elementary school that I thought I was avoiding by going to college, all that crap came with me. And I didn't even know that I was drinking because I was feeling insecure. I was using drugs because I didn't feel part of. I didn't know that I was doing the same things that I was doing back then, except with things harder than books and TV and candy. Um, so I did college for 5 years, didn't graduate, and eventually decided that I just needed to work. And that's what I did. I worked at Sam Goody and I partied. I worked and I partied. I worked and I partied. And it was around this time where I started to notice that using drugs and alcohol didn't make me feel as good as it used to. Things started to kind of boomerang on me. I would notice that I couldn't get into clubs or bars because I would take it with medication, and that medication with alcohol did not combine for a happy outcome. And it was a miracle that I even woke up in my bed sometimes. It was just like, I don't even know how I made it there sometimes. And things started to get worse. Things were happening in the evening, and I would call my friends or the people I thought were my friends at the time, and I'd say, what happened? And no one would tell me what happened. I noticed that I had all these wonderful friends when I was drinking and drugging, but I didn't have any of these friends during the normal hours. I had no one to help me go to the bank. I had no one to share the downtime with. And honestly, there really wasn't even that much downtime because I literally worked, did drugs and drank, and then went to bed to go to sleep. There was really no other life. And I became to get more and more and more depressed. I did do a geographic to California, to San Diego. And I thought I was going to build a whole new life for myself there. And it all followed me: the mental health issues, the drug and alcohol problems. And I became more and more depressed. I came back and I the only thing I was doing right was going to therapy. And my therapist would say to me, "Hey, do you think you might have a problem with drugs or alcohol? Do you think that maybe you could, you know, do something else, like go to AA or go to a, you know, like check this out and see if you have a problem?" And I was against that. I was like, "No way, I don't have that." I mean, I thought that an alcoholic was this guy with a trench coat with like liquor in his pocket, talking about, "Hey, little kid, you want a drink? You want some drugs?" That's what I thought an addict and an alcoholic was. So for me to be one, I just was like, "No, that's not going to be, that's not me at all." Not to mention having discovered that my biological mother was an addict and an alcoholic, there was no way I wanted to associate myself with that. I had no idea that that was actually even that substance abuse was even hereditary. So I was in denial for quite a long time, which was a gift because I needed to amass enough suffering to be willing to do absolutely anything. And that's what happened. One day, I was just tired of it all and decided to kill myself. So I went to go and I went to the bar to say goodbye to all my friends, and they were like, "You don't have to die today. Here, have a drink." And so I'm like, "I'm not gonna die." But I was assaulted that night, and I tried to kill myself. And then I woke up, and I was enraged, like seeing red, just like incensed, like, and I yelled at God. I was like, "What the hell?" I finally had the courage to off myself. I was willing to come back as a dung beetle, and you have the nerve to bring me back? What is this? Why am I this cosmic joke? How dare you? How dare you? And God, this voice said to me, "You know, you don't get out that easy. You've got work to do." And so that day I picked myself up and I went to my first NA meeting. That was my first introduction to recovery. And so I went to NA, and I sat in the corner and I was all mean and angry, and I was like, "Don't look at me, don't touch me." And they said, "Keep coming back." And I did. I came back because there were hot guys. I came back because there was chicken and there was cake and there was food. It was like camaraderie. It was all the things that I was missing. And I came back because, you know, hey, maybe they weren't wrong. That was something about recovery that I tried to embrace, was that maybe they weren't wrong. These people were happier than I was, so maybe they weren't wrong. I was so desperate. I mean, after you try to kill yourself and you can't even do that right, that's a level of desperation that really made me willing to do anything. So I stayed in NA for about 2 years, mainly because someone told me that I wouldn't stay clean and sober. Eventually, I started judging everybody. It was like, "Oh, don't smoke crack. That's a good idea. But, you know, it's also illegal. Like, is this the bar I'm trying to reach my whole entire life? I have nothing in common with you. I have nothing in common with you, and I don't want to be like you. So I don't really need to go to these meetings anymore. You know, normal people can drink." You know, I so desperately wanted to be normal. Normal people can drink. So I can do it too. I cleaned up my act, and I'll notice it if I'm getting unmanageable. I'll notice if I'm having a problem with alcohol. And so I picked up my first drink after 2 years of being clean and sober. It was the perfect fantasy. I was sitting in sushi samba, like the Sex and the City ladies, and I was drinking Sauvignon Blanc. And I was like, "Oh, yes, this is just, I'm so fancy. I can do this. I'm like everybody else." And by the end of the night, I was picking money up off the floor, because apparently in clubs, they threw money around in clubs. I was out of the scene for 2 years. And in that 2 years, throwing money around at the clubs became a thing. And I was on the ground picking up money off of the ground so I could get another drink, so I could buy a Corona, because a Corona would last longer than a glass of wine, right? I had no idea that was how insidious my alcoholism had gotten. Just that first night, I was trying to do anything to keep drinking. And so from that point on, I spent about a good 6 months really in my alcoholism. Uh, we had a Rite Aid in town, and I would take my bottle of wine, put it in the fridge, come back for it when I thought it was chilled, and then put another bottle of wine in the fridge, finish that bottle of wine, come back to the store, buy that bottle of wine. I was literally swapping out for cold bottles of wine, um, so I could feed my drinking habit. One night we went to dinner, and I had finished the bottle of wine at the right before the appetizers, right before the entree. I ran to the liquor store to get the second bottle of wine in time for the entree. So it was, I didn't realize that was unmanageability. I didn't realize that was, hey, danger, Will Robinson. I didn't know anything like that. And I didn't know until I hit my second bottom. So I went on for about 6 months, and my second bottom came when I brought another man home to my boyfriend in a blackout. So the last thing I had remembered was singing Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds with the band, and I wasn't a part of the band. And then I woke up at home, and it was just, there was a note. It was like, I'd never been so disrespected and blah, blah, blah. And it turns out that I had brought somebody home, and the person asked if we were an open relationship, and I was playing hostess, and I was like, would you like some of this? Who likes some of this? And I was changing my clothes, and I was falling all over the place. And in that morning after, I realized I was going to lose like my ferret, my home, my job, my boyfriend, my everything. I was like, oh my God, like I didn't do that. How do you look at somebody and tell them that that's not you, right? How do you tell them that you didn't do that? Because that's literally what happened. I was drinking, partying at the bar, and then all of a sudden Melanie had left the building, and she had done this thing. And that is when I realized, I was like, wait a minute, this is what they mean, where we're like, you're just this is what a blackout is. I didn't even realize that's what a blackout was. When you can't even you can't I the phrase, when you take that one drink, all bets are off, that became my truth. If I take one drink, all bets are off, because I have no idea what's going to happen. Because I could never have planned that. I would have never suspected anything like that would happen. And so, to save everything that I had in my life, I went to a meeting, and I actually didn't do that on my own. I have so many wonderful women in my life that prayed me into this place, that brought me into this place of recovery. So if you're looking for speakers, Jay, I've got a few for you. So my friend Lee, I called her up, and I wanted to jump straight into the train tracks, right? Because I wanted to die. I had lost my wallet, and she called me. We spoke, and she said that I never have to feel this way again. And she said, come on over. I have some soup. We ate some borscht. We found my wallet, and then we went to a meeting. And I started my journey of recovery. And that was September 4th, 2008. I became a member of the Women Seeking Serenity group of Metuchen, New Jersey. It meets at 7:30 on Friday nights. They are a hybrid meeting, and those women loved me and taught me how to be a woman, and they instilled these amazing values, this good orderly direction. So now that I am a woman of dignity, honor, and grace. And so it was very hard in early recovery, because I had no idea what surrender really, really, truly meant, right? Surrender meant letting go of things that made me feel comfortable, that were not drugs and alcohol, right? Really choosing to let go people, places, and things. And in letting them go, I had to embrace something different. And so there was one point of my recovery where very early on, where my boyfriend, he was like, hey, remember that time you brought that guy home? Well, I think we should be swingers. And I think we should do that. And I was very early on in recovery. And I realized that if I was going to be a swinger, I'd need a lot of drugs. Like that's just a given for me. A lot of drugs in order to swing. And so I went to the women in recovery and I said to them, "Hey, do you know any spiritually fit swingers?" And they pointed them out to me, and they were like, "Hey, they're not very happy. I've heard this, I've heard that." And it became very clear that in order for I could choose to stay sober, be a good steward of my soul, or I could choose to be with this man. And at the time, many times in recovery, being with the man meant that I had some security. I had half the rent paid. I had food in my pantry and in my fridge. I had companionship, you know? And here I was embarking on this journey of recovery, and I knew that I couldn't stay sober if I chose the path that my partner wanted me to take. So I had to surrender and embrace something different. I said, "Hey, I can't play with you, Mike. I can't do that. I have to choose my sobriety." And in that moment, that was really me choosing my soul, because I knew I was so very aware of how, when I drank and did drugs, how spiritually bankrupt I was. I mean, that second bottom, both bottoms caused me to want to kill myself, right? And so third time might have been the charm. And so I wasn't willing to gamble that. And that's that gift of desperation, which I'm so very grateful for. So I chose recovery. And I didn't do a lot of things right. Like I didn't, actually, no, I did stay away from having another boyfriend for 2 years. I did do that. My next partner, he was in AA, and it was like, if we keep God in AA on the forefront, we're going to be just fine. He had relapsed, all sorts of stuff happened, and I stayed with AA. I stayed with AA through jobs. I stayed with AA through, traumas with my family. Staying with AA became not just the smart thing to do, but like the successful thing to do. Because here was a place where if I didn't know how to do something, I had a wealth of people who were dying to share with me how to do it. I remember the first few times I was going grocery shopping, and I was like, should I buy peanut butter and jelly? I don't like peanut butter and jelly, but my mom and people bought peanut butter and jelly. I didn't know how to figure out whether or not that was the smart thing to do, or you just did it. And they were like, well, do you want peanut butter and jelly? Being in AA, taught me that there was more to learn about myself, and I was learning more about myself, and by interacting with you guys. So I took on service early by always helping to clean up. I do have commitment issues, but I would be there and help clean up the chairs. I would be there with the coffee maker, helping the coffee maker, or helping the coffee maker clean up, handing out the books. That helped me be a part of. I did a lot of service with just hanging out, fellowshipping with people. I had some sponsees. I gave people rides because people gave me rides. They said, give it back in order to keep it. And I remember when I got my car, I wanted to keep my car. So I made sure I gave people rides. I was always someone who wanted to have fun in recovery, so people could count on me for having a good sober time. And I've had so many adventures in sobriety with just the most amazing people who were also in sobriety. I had no idea that this would give me a life beyond my wildest dreams, honestly. I mean, I can't even, like, I'm thinking about all the miraculous things that happened to me because I stayed sober. Like $10 cars. I've had two $10 cars in my lifetime. And it's because I am a sober woman who has dignity, honor, and grace. and I don't want to add people to my 8th step, you know? So I treat others as kindly as possible, and I try to stay very vigilant, right? Working that step 10, like if I'm wrong, promptly admitting it. As of late, I've been doing a lot of spot check inventories because, they say more money, more problems. Well, more money, more problems, more freedom, more problems, more access, more problems. It's just the more I get, this addict and alcoholic wants to find ways to fuck it up. And I have to constantly check in with myself and check in with other people to see if I'm doing this right. And so some people are like, well, what do you mean doing it right, Melanie? And like, I want to do it with good, orderly direction. I want to do it in a way that makes me put my head down at night when I do my that 10th step at night, when I put my head down and be like, I feel good about myself. I'm not living without integrity. I'm not being dishonest. I'm not being selfish. I'm not being someone who's edging closer to a drink. And that's pretty much the biggest part of it all, is that I have to stay vigilant about whether or not my actions are leading me closer to a drink or further away from a drink. And AA has given me a lot of tools, a lot of strategies to do that. So I know if I'm ashamed to talk about something, right, then I know that's bringing me closer to a drink. So there isn't much you can ask me that I'm not going to tell you, because I learned very early on that I'm as sick as my secrets, and I cannot save my ass and my face at the same time. So I'd much rather save my ass. So I will tell anybody anything because I need to stay free. I'm, I'm not trying to go back into slavery. So I will tell y'all what I need to tell you because I enjoy life like this. There were times when I did not have a sponsor. And so I would use the group as my sponsor. And yeah, I would share whatever in order to lift the merciless obsession from me. I have been working really hard as of late because I've left my home area in September to Pennsylvania, because I was in New Jersey. Now I'm in Pennsylvania. I'm really trying to practice that whole put your butt in a wheelbarrow and take it to a meeting kind of principle, or to go to meetings like the way that I used. I'm in this new place. I don't know people and I don't want to go to meetings, right? I want to sit home and do it on Zoom, or I want to sit home and watch TV and stay warm, especially in the winter. So I've been really trying to reach out in my new area, trying to make myself accountable to people in this area, saying, hey, are you going to the meeting tonight? Are you going to be there? Or even if, or just telling them I'm not going to be there because I now have a job that requires that I do work on weekends and stuff like that. So I'm trying to make myself accountable. I did jump in and I led a meeting in October for a month, and that was good too, but I needed a different meeting. But the tips, the what AA has given me has like a framework in which I can build my life upon, that if I choose to stay sober and follow this framework, I'm gonna be successful. But it's just gonna take time, right? And time is things I must earn. So it's willingness, like I had to be willing to show up for that noon meeting, and I have to be willing to show up for my recovery. And when the chips are down, sometimes I don't feel like I want to show up for my recovery. And that's a really scary place to be, because I don't want to be that girl again. I don't want to be that girl who can't even recognize herself. I couldn't do this alone. In this process, I have developed an amazing relationship with a higher power that is phenomenal, so phenomenal. Like God, Jesus, Buddha, Satan, Allah, Pele, Kali, all of them are my higher powers. They are watching out for me. Me. And I love them. And they've given me a career where I actually converse with them on a daily, hourly basis. And they are they are literally ushering me into this next dimension of existence. And it all started in recovery when you guys said that I could pick and choose what I wanted my higher power to be. And you suggested that it be loving and caring. And this higher power helped me get married. This higher power helped me become a marriable woman. And this higher power helped me leave my husband and have no terrible repercussions. This higher power has been bringing me so much abundance and prosperity and understanding and solace and comfort. And it's almost like he's like, yes, this is the work we wanted you to do, Melanie. We wanted you to see that there's no easy way out of this. Your whole reason in life is to build character. Your whole big reason in life is to be an example of what humanity could be. And it's been a really fun challenge because I'm a little spicy, you know? And I still see how there are ways where I can keep my spice and then still live according to principles, right? And why I feel like when I came to AA, it was like a way more successful and more enriching than when I went to NA, because AA, we really talked about the principles, right? About being honest and being open-minded and being willing. And whenever I run into a difficulty, like I can spot like what it is, and not on my own, mind you. Like I do have to have, like, I call them my mother, maid, and crones. So I have to contact like typically 3 women to be like, so am I thinking the right thing? Am I going about this the right way? And so like whenever there's a problem, I can spot some character defect, some sort of asset that's been turned upside down that is just causing the unmanageability. Like with my job, usually it's my pride that's been hurt, my ego. Oh, that ego, right? That's easing God out, right? And then also the fear. There isn't anything in this existence that isn't motivating me, that isn't being motivated by my fears. And my higher power is like, we got you sober, girl. We got you $10 cars. We got you an amazing apartment. We got you the love and respect of people, of a fellowship. You are surrounded by physical manifestations of miracles. The women in my life, the people I go to in all the meetings, they're bloody you guys are miracles. I'm surrounded by miracles. So he's like, so what do you really have to be afraid of? We're going to give you everything you need. You can't be running this show. You don't know what's going to happen. So just hold on. Don't drink. Try not to act out, but no matter what, don't drink, because you have no choices, no chances if you pick up that drink, right? And just keep doing your best. And in early recovery, it was like, I wanted to be perfect, because it was such a, like, when you read the words, it's like, okay, all I have to do is this. And then like I totally I hated, and I still do sometimes hate, my humanity, because it's not just black and white in words, but there's so many, the gray areas that I encounter in my life can be solved, can be rectified, can be soothed with something from the book, something from AA. And I tell you, like, if I'm not going to the big book for it, like I can pick up, so I do have a little black book, the 24-hour book. I can read that and it speaks to my heart. I messaged somebody in AA and they said, and this always pisses me off. I'll message somebody and I'll be like, hey, how you doing? Like fishing for like, how are you? Right? And then they'll send me a screenshot of a page. And then I read the page and it's like exactly what I needed to say. And I'm like, the literature. I wanted to complain. But that's how my higher power is like saying, hey kid, if you want in on this, I'm all about it. Let's do it. And I want in on it. I don't ever want to turn my back on AA. I don't ever want to turn my back on recovery. And so what I've been noticing is that, I talked about the more is trying to kill me. It's trying to kill me. All these wonderful blessings want me dead, right? That is what my disease is saying. And my disease is showing up As I get smarter, my disease is getting smarter. As I'm getting wiser and more spiritual, my disease is getting wiser and more spiritual. And so there's no amount of Akashic record reading I can do. There's no amount of meditation I can do. There's not no amount of energy work I can do that is going to replace going to a meeting, being honest, going through the steps, talking about the steps, and sharing. I tried a little bit, you know, like I was like, oh, I'm doing all this spiritual stuff. Like even working a job in recovery, like so I was working for a nonprofit organization that was like recovery based. I was teaching yoga, I was doing meditation. It was all because of recovery, right? Even that could not replace going to a meeting, getting honest, and connecting with other sober alcoholics. Um, and it was really strange because it was like, well, why wouldn't it? You know, my whole entire life at that time was recovery, 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 recovery. And I didn't want to go to another meeting. It was like, well, isn't that enough? And my higher power would be like, well, is it enough? You know, like, is it? And it's not. It's not enough. If it was a drink in front of me, right? And knowing who I am and how I drink, that one last drink, right? I'm surrounded by drinks, and then that one last drink, and I'm like, oh, do you want to take that drink or not? You know, is that going to be enough? No, that drink is never going to be enough. And I have to look at it like that with my recovery is that, hey, just because you're working in the field, just because you're spiritual, just because you have a relationship with your higher power, it's never going to be enough unless you're getting into the meetings, you're getting into the rooms. Now, this is not to say I'm going to meetings every single day. No, I'm not. I have made commitments to certain meetings, and I am doing my best to show up to those meetings and trying not to put work in front of my meetings, because they say that if you put anything in front of your recovery, it's going to be taken away. Now, I don't want anything else taken away from me. The people of this program are really what keep me coming back, and they keep me sober. I do not want to have to admit to my girlfriends that, and I do have majority women in my life. I would love that email about how to use the traditions in relationships, because I would like another relationship, but I mean, I don't know, people. You know, I don't know if I can handle people who aren't in recovery. Even people in recovery are hard enough. These freaking muggles out there, I don't know. But like, you know, like you know, but the people keep me coming back. I don't want to ever have to have that moment where I'm like, hey guys, I drank, I did drugs, I fucked up. I don't want to lose that ever again. And it's nice to know that no matter where I go and what I do, if I get my butt in a meeting, I'm going to be safe for just that day. Because that's really all I have, right? It's just one day at a time, to do the best that I could do with what I have. And so a lot has changed for me, but the fact of the matter is I am still a bozo on the bus that sometimes doesn't really enjoy life, that is sometimes really, really struggling in a lot of pain. I still want certainty. I still want things the way that I want them. And the difference between now and then is that I don't drink because things aren't my way. I don't do drugs because things aren't my way. I don't go out and sport fuck because things aren't my way. I don't go out and try to harm other people because things aren't going my way. I notice it faster, and I try to change it sooner by using the tools and the tricks and the strategies I learned in these rooms. These strategies, tips, and tricks that I've learned from the people in the rooms. And I tell people right away when things are not right for me. That sneakiness doesn't go away. So lots of times I have kind of backdoored what I needed. Like I'll start by, how are you doing? And I'll hear them out. And then at the tail end, I'll be like, oh yeah, this happened and it's terrible. And they'll be like, why did you tell me? You know? And so I'm still learning to take my space. You know, I can easily hide in service, and I'm learning not to do that because that doesn't allow me to stay honest as I'd like to be. There were moments where I would do service and realize that I did it in a way that was dishonest, and I didn't like that. That's the really great thing about recovery too, is like when I do things that are wrong, they don't feel good anymore. And, this addict and alcoholic likes to feel good. So I'm trying to do everything I can to make that last. But, everything is temporary, right? And I just get a daily reprieve based on my spiritual condition. And my spiritual condition will fluctuate day in and day out because my ego shows up, my fears show up, my insecurities show up all the time. And I learned through someone in our program that the opposite of fear is faith. And so I keep trying to remember that I'm a bloody miracle. Is it that one time I tried to kill myself was not the last time, and I'm still alive. So if I'm a miracle and I'm surrounded by miracles, then why would my higher power bring me this far just to drop me on my head, right? It wouldn't. I also made a bargain with my higher power, a bargain, and it was kind of like, hey, I'm willing to serve. Coming into AA showed me that I have a purpose in this world, and I want to serve your will. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to figure out how my treasures, talents, and abilities align with your will, right? And so I always have to remember that that's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing this whenever I'm feeling maladjusted or uncomfortable with the world. And so I made this bargain with them, and I really feel like my higher power has been looking out for me and the people that I love. Like today, people look to me and say, hey, Melanie's a good egg. We want Melanie. We want to invite Melanie to the party, which didn't happen before. I want to call Melanie and see what she thinks. That never happened before. I'm trusted. I have a relationship with my family now. I have a relationship with my biological mother now. I have children who look up to me, and I'm fun. I have so much fun now. I don't need to drink and do drugs to have this fun. Now, don't get me wrong. There have been times where I've been stepping outside of my comfort zone, like going out dancing. And there have been times where other sober people weren't able to go out dancing with me, but I went anyway because I'm just trying to expand my world. And I've felt very insecure, and I've been kind of, nervous, dancing alone, sober. But I remembered, hey, you're here to have a good time. You're not going to pick up a drink. You can do this. You're not going to do it all the time, because that's not healthy, but you can do this time. And so, and I've done that. I've gone out dancing by myself and stayed sober. Thank you. I was waiting for that. I've done so many things. Have I traveled alone yet sober? No, not really, because I'm always around people mostly. I started a business sober. I'm separated from my husband and still have a good relationship with him. We are still cool. We're not at each other's throats. And it's only because recovery, we were like, hey, we don't need to be together anymore. And that's okay. Recovery was like, you don't need to turn this into a whole thing, right? You can do this serenely with dignity, honor, and grace. And I did that. So I know that when I die, people are going to miss me. That makes me, and that's what I wanted. I didn't want people to be relieved when I died, because that's the way it was before I got sober. My poor mother getting those phone calls, like, is this your daughter? Having to identify my body, stuff like that. And so when I die, people are going to miss me. They are not going to be relieved. And when I'm up there with God, Jesus, Buddha, Satan, Allah, Pele, Kai, whoever the hell is running this shit show, they're gonna high five me. They're gonna be like, yeah, girl, welcome, you did it, woo! And I'll be like, you guys were funny. I'm so glad I'm here now. And they're gonna be like, well, do you see all the things you did? And you see all the things you didn't do, and all this and that. They will never ever say to me that I didn't have courage, that I didn't have integrity, that I didn't show up, that I didn't do my very, very best, and I didn't try to love with my whole entire heart. There's not a single higher entity that could ever say that, because I go balls to the wall. I've been going balls to the wall since I got to recovery, and I don't intend to stop. And these little things about my character that I'm mending day by day, minute by minute, are being healed. And I'm pretty glad that I didn't die. And I'm looking forward to tomorrow, because that's the only day I might be able to look forward to, and doing it with dignity, honor, and grace. So that's it. Yeah. Do I need to talk for 2 more minutes? Okay, because I could. No. Thank you. Thank you for letting me share.
Yay. Thank you so much, Melanie. Oh my God, you're amazing. Let me just click.